Amburana finished whiskey felt like something that was just a fad. It was going to go away. It got kind of overdone as every single distillery hopped on the bandwagon. So I thought I was done with Amburana as well. I have quite a few bottles to get through of Amburana finished whiskeys. But lo and behold, there's always somebody that comes in, surprises you, and uses it in a unique fashion. So today we are going to be talking about the newest release from Hard Truth. This one's called The Farmer's Reserve, and I'll get into more of those details in just a moment. So thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining me for another whiskey review. And today we are going to be doing the Hard Truth. This is the second release in this collaboration series that they're doing with Mellencamp Whiskey. This one is called The Farmer's Reserve. I did do a review a few months ago on the first release, which was called the Harvest Rye, but this is something that is completely different. So, as mentioned, it was finished in toasted Amburana, but what also makes this one really unique is that it's a blend of their chocolate malt rye and their sweet mash bourbon. So the bourbons that just came out. So it is essentially a boo rye, then finished in the Amburana, and that gives it some unique characteristics and a fun ride if you stick along as we do the tasting notes here. So let's jump into the stats on this one. So this one is $70. I personally got this from the distillery, though I have now seen it on Seelbach. I'm pretty sure it's on there right now as of recording. And I have seen the Harvest Rye hit stores in Northern Kentucky. One thing that's really cool is you can go to the Hard Truth website. They got like a map locator thing that actually works really well. And you can see what product you want and see if you can get it in your area. So that's a good way of knowing if this is even available to you, if my description of it piques your interest. It is 106 proof and it's non-age stated, though. I mean, we got to imagine here. I mean, Hard Truth is dealing with 3-year, 4-year, 5-year stuff, depending on the ryes and the bourbons. So it's something around that range, generally speaking, but it is non-age stated. One other cool thing about this one, too, they mention it on the bottle, but essentially each sale of a bottle of this goes towards local farming in Indiana to help support sustainable farming. So it's got that whole, side purpose as well, not just being a cool bottle. And then Mellencamp on each of these too helps collaborate the artwork that goes on these. So the artwork is going to be different every time they release one of these. And this is the second release in a planned 4-release series. And specifically, this is the spring 2024 called the Farmer's Reserve Sweet Mash. All right, enough talking. Let's get into the tasting notes of this crazy whiskey. Cheers, everybody. Gosh. So the Amburana is there, and I think the Amburana is most present when it does come to the nose on this one. There's no hiding the fact that it is Amburana finished, but it doesn't come across as just cinnamon toast crunch or a churro, which is how I would typically describe something that is Amburana finished. Instead, it's more like a Mexican chocolate milk to me. Like if you took a bit of like a quick chocolate powder and poured some cinnamon in that and then mixed that up, it's more of that type of sensation to me than just the straight cinnamon toast crunch. The other thing that does stick out on this particular release is how much the other flavors do shine through. So if you are familiar with Hard Truth, their ryes, their bourbons, the fruits on these things always pop, and it continues to pop on this one. The fruits that are coming through, at least on the nose, are kind of around apples and melons, kind of in that range, kind of a brighter to medium range. And The other thing that I had written in my notes is the longer you let it sit. Now, this one, I just poured a couple minutes ago, but the longer you let it sit, the chocolate malt will start to take over. And that will be kind of a theme of this, especially as we get to the finish. What can survive Amburana finish? Because everything almost tastes the same when you finish it in Amburana. Their chocolate malt rye can survive the Amburana finish. All right. Let's get into the taste. Now, on the nose, did give this one a thumbs up. I do enjoy this nose, and you can see the smile on my face. So let's get into the taste here. Up front, one thing that does stick out, it has this like frothy, light mouthfeel. So it's definitely oily, but when it hits your tongue, it almost has this like lightness to it, almost like the texture of if you like whipped up some eggs, but you didn't like over whip them. It's got that like type of a light texture to it, if that makes sense. The flavors up front gonna be like cinnamon, ton of baking spices, vanilla extract, molasses. Those were the first things I thought of. And then the apples are there initially as well. And then by the time you get to mid palate, oh geez, the cinnamon starts taking a little bit of a step back. You get caramel, vanilla, chocolate. It made me think of the candy that's called cowtails, and maybe even like a moist coffee cake type of a sensation. And ultimately, those fruits do add up, though I was having a hard time picking apart specifically what fruit to talk about. So just described it more as a fruit roll up, essentially. So just a medley of fruits, almost in that processed artificial range, but really, really good as well. Kind of has that nostalgic feel between the cowtails and the fruit roll ups. So on the palette there, gave that one a thumbs up as well. That is pretty fun. And, especially when you heard me calling out those notes. I mean, cinnamon comes up a couple times, but that Amburana it's playing out more like a piece of the blend rather than something dominating the blend, which is why I do enjoy this one so much. Not just from a tasting the whiskey standpoint, but just I don't know, the chemistry and the timing and everything that they put into this one to not allow the Amburana to dominate like so many other brands have done over the last 2 years. All right, let's get into the finish. I think the finish is really where this one shines, and it really comes together, and it's got a nice long finish as well. The star of the finish is the chocolate malt rye. That's the main thing that I'm tasting right now. It will dovetail momentarily and almost a dark honey residue, which is pretty interesting too. On the finish too, there's just this dance of those vanillas and chocolates that I mentioned before with the cowtails, and it does brighten up and gives you a blast of those fruits. Now, the fruits on the finish, I would say, lean more apple to a tropical range. All right, let me go into one more sip here, see if I got anything else. Oh, that's just a fun ride. That is a really, really fun whiskey. Gave the finish on that one thumbs up as well. Uh, just an overall, just a fun whiskey, especially for $70, taking that risk on it there. So flavor score, gave it an 80. Experience score, gave it an 80 as well. It essentially got eights across the board on this one. And then for $70, gave it the full points on value. I think it's really worth what they're charging for it. So ultimately, that comes out to an 82 overall out of 100. For 2024, that ranks it in the top 10, just barely there, holding on, out of 24 bottles reviewed so far this year. And then all time, hey, pretty high, 65 out of 171. So that gives you some context then on how that score pans out in the grand scheme of things. So that is the main thoughts on this Hard Truth Farmers Reserve. As mentioned, you can get this on Sealbach or just go on their website and see if you can find it in your area. But a very interesting series to keep track of. What I also thought was interesting too was like with the Harvest Rye, which I got right here, which was the first in the series. This one was a rye with a unique mash bill of 70% rye, 30% corn. And then the second one in the series is a completely different animal, a Boo Rye with their chocolate malt rye, then finished in Amburana. They are experimenting, and I absolutely love it. I can't wait to see what this third release is now and see if they keep experimenting further. Once again, we love Hard Truth here. Good things on the horizon for this brand. One to check out, if you're into Hard Truth already, but you're going to have a fun ride on this one if you take the leap. So thank you for joining me for the review, everybody. If you have tried this, let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know what you think of Amburana finishes as well. I know a lot of people have given up on Amburana. Maybe my description of things might pull you back in. If nothing else, I suggest you experience this one so that you can see Amburana done right. So thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. Catch you on the next whiskey review. Goodbye, everybody.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello